Fight me.
The sports animal. The sports animal.
There's 3 ways we're going to beat this team. Defense, defense, and defense. 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
It's time to step up to a fresh perspective.
He's been playing out of position for a full year. Maybe move the kid back over the corner where he earned his 5-star status.
It's time to talk about the day's biggest topics.
He wasn't talking about anybody else other than Justin Fields. And to be truthful, he wasn't taking another 2019 quarterback.
And if you don't agree, then fight me.
Let's get ready to rumble!
It's time for Fight Me with RJ Young. Fight Me is brought to you by American Putter Company, The Fan Stop, and Trey's Bar and Grill. So step up to the mic and fight me. Here's RJ Young.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. This is Fight Me with myself, RJ Young. Today we're going to get into Lincoln Riley ain't looking for a big arm in his quarterbacks, which is a shocker to some folks, but not to me. We're also going to get into the NBA MVP is not who you think it is, and the best college football coach in America ain't at Clemson or Georgia, or even Oklahoma for that matter. He's coaching in the Sun Belt right now. But first, I want to talk about Kyler Murray's size, and in particular, something Lincoln Riley had to say earlier this week. Listen to this.
Could I worry about Kyler being small-ish prototype body?
No, and here's why. You know, those other guys you listed, especially Russell Wilson being maybe the best comparison. I mean, athletically, there's no comparison to this guy. I mean, this is like Barry Sanders running with the football as a quarterback. I'm not saying he's as good a runner as Barry Sanders, but the guy that has elite speed, elite quickness, and has a feel for not taking big hits when he runs. He took many, even though he ran more than Baker did, he took way less hits because he is so athletically gifted that he just avoids them. He just doesn't take big shots, and he's smart about it as well.
That was Lincoln Riley on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, who I know is a lightning rod for many Sooners fans. But I thought that this interview was particularly good and asked a question that Lincoln Riley, I'm sure, has had to answer when talking to NFL GMs and scouts and whatnot as to Kyler Murray's size, because the man is not 6'6", and his weight, because the man is not 235 pounds. But Lincoln's right. Kyler just doesn't get roughed up when we're talking about, every game but the Alabama game, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But that Crimson Tide team was also the best Oklahoma saw all year with a bunch of future pros, particularly on the defense. And I looked at this, and I was I was taken aback because you got safety Deontay Thompson. It's being talked about as a first-rounder out of Alabama. It's going to be the first safety taken off the board if you believe the draft wonks, and I do. Maybe Oakland goes and gets him at number 24 because their defensive backfield was just garbage. I mean, we're talking about a secondary that gave up 16 of 22 for 262 yards with 3 TDs to Nick Ellington. I bet y'all didn't even remember that man's name. Nick Ellington, I went to Southern Miss. I mean, come on. And then you're talking about the third, that's the third string quarterback in San Francisco. So Thompson could help them out. Linebacker Mack Wilson, who ended up on a milk carton after what CeeDee Lamb did to him, blasted him back into grade school with the best hit by a Sooner all season, looking at you, OU defense. But he also was a really great inside linebacker, particularly with 71 tackles, right? A sack, 2 picks last year. And this is Pete Golding's inside linebackers. For those of you that remember that name, we're going to get into him a little bit later in the show. But draft analysts rank him as the third best inside linebacker in this draft behind LSU's Devin White and Michigan's Devin Bush. They ain't as hard as Devin Michelle, but we won't get into that. Then we're talking about corners that were pretty good at covering up guys like Hollywood Brown, if not so much CeeDee Lamb. Savion Smith was good. He could be the kind of guy that gets talked into by the Chiefs or the Rams going late or in the first or late in the first round or early in the second round. But the guy that we all remember going after Kyler was Quinnen Miller. And what Quinnen Miller did has drawn these comparisons to Aaron Donald, and I know everybody is trying to compare everybody else to Aaron Donald that plays on the defensive line right now, but I watched Quinnen Miller destroy the middle of Oklahoma's offensive line, which is the best in college football, and they got the award to prove it. I also watched Anthony Jennings and Christian Williams go after Kyler and get free shots on him because of the double teams that Miller could command. In particular, once he put Ben Powers on his backside, I knew the game was over. Like that happened in the first quarter, second series. It's just over for them. But the thing that you need to remember in bringing all this to your attention is that Kyler Murray got bruised. He got bloodied, but his head was unbowed. All you had to do was take a look at the postgame presser to see that he was hurt. But he still went 19 of 37 for 309 yards passing and rushed for 109 yards on 17 carries. So the man got Oklahoma 400 yards and 3 touchdowns against the best defense he faced all year. Even when he was getting destroyed, he put up Heisman numbers. Bottom line is, you can talk yourself into Kyler Murray if you want. You can talk yourself out of him if you want. This is why I think he better throw at this NFL Combine. I think he better throw because he is gifted when we're talking about throwing the ball down the field, but also the velocity that this man can throw with, and he'll be able to show that arm angle that has been just awesome. That's kind of what I'm getting at when we've played this Lincoln Riley clip. He just doesn't get passes batted down, and his size doesn't seem to matter, because I know Lincoln called it a gift, but the guys at Pro Football Focus actually put a number on this, and I appreciate this. This is Sam Munson in his Twitter account. Kyler Murray had 5 passes batted down all season. Just 5. For perspective, Duke's Daniel Jones, who's being talked about as a guy who could be a first-round quarterback taken, was 6'5", and he had 12 passes batted down. So that's more than double Kyler. Missouri's Drew Lock, he's 6'4". He had 8 passes batted down. West Virginia's Will Greer, 6'1". He had 1 pass batted down. It's pretty good. And then, of course, Ohio State's Dwayne Haskins, 6'3", and he had 5 passes batted down. So are batted passes connected to height? No. And we can look at Joe Flacco, who is 6'6", and had the most batted passes down last season. I still don't understand that trade, but, I'm not John Elway. I didn't build Denver, and apparently I'm not going to get run out of Denver if this doesn't work out. But you can see that it doesn't seem to matter that Kyler Murray is 5'9", 5'10", or a legal dwarf. He knows how to throw the ball, and you could say that maybe this has to do something with Lincoln Riley's system, but again, this is why we have the NFL Combine. And since Kyler has committed himself to playing professional football, I expect him to go through most of the Combine. I think he'll do bench. I think he'll, get weighed and measured and all those sorts of things. And I think he should throw, because that is the thing for which he can actually do himself some good. I don't know that he would do himself any good by running the 40-yard dash, as much as we would all like to see how fast Kyler Murray is, because Lamar Jackson ain't run no 40-yard dash, and we saw how that worked out for him. I think you can let people dream when you talk about the 40-yard dash. We're still telling urban legend stories about Deion Sanders running the 40 backward in Timberlands and sweats, because we want to believe that Deion is every bit as fast as our imaginations. And I think we want to believe that with Kyler too. So let's not spoil that, but also let's not give anybody any more reason to think that Kyler Murray should not be the first quarterback taken in this NFL draft. When we come back, talk a little bit more college football. We're going to get into the best kept secret in college football. I'm really excited about that because, my man Bruce Feldman put this on here, and Pete Golding is that dude, but I'm going to tell you about the guy that made Pete Golding. This is Fight Me with RJ Young. We'll be right back. Fight Me.
Yeah, I think our biggest thing, what we try to preach on defense is, we have an and one philosophy. All we're trying to do is outplay the opposing defense. We don't care what our offense is doing. It doesn't matter. So our kids just got to understand, however many negative yardage plays they have, we got to have one more. However many turnovers they got, we got to have one more. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we get on the field. It matters how we get off the field. And I think those older guys are starting to buy into that philosophy and understanding it ain't about them. It's about us competing the defense. If we beat the defense every time, unless Coach Brumfield screws it up on special teams, we'll win. All right? So just outplay the other guys. And I think they're starting to do that.
That was Pete Golding talking about his defense at the start of the 2017 season, August 12th, 2017, via the Inside Roadrunner Sports YouTube channel, where he gave an extended interview that I thought was quite honestly awesome. Because talking about beating the other defense as opposed to beating the offense is just a different way of thinking about football as a defensive coordinator. And you could see that his 2017 defense was absolutely awesome at UTSA. We're talking about finished 8th in scoring, 2nd in first down defense, 19th in pass efficiency. I mean, they improved to a staggering degree, so staggering that he ended up getting a call from Nick Saban to be the co-defense coordinator, inside linebackers coach last year. And he's recently been promoted to defensive coordinator with Tosh Deploy, moving on to coach the defensive line at Cleveland. But we're in this season of clinics for high school football and college football coaches. So if you get a chance to go to some clinics, I wouldn't necessarily say that you shouldn't go see Brent Venables. You know, I wouldn't say that you shouldn't go see the new guy at UGA, Dan Lenny, just promoted to defensive coordinator. Shout out to Glenn Schumann, who was named the co-defense coordinator, inside linebackers coach, and gave DeAndre Baker's acceptance speech at the Jim Thorpe Award. Really, really enjoyed listening to him. I would also say that you wouldn't be remiss if you got to see Pete Golding do his thing, because that's a guy that got his job at Alabama after a 5-hour interview where he was just up at the whiteboard taking Nick Saban's questions, and they were talking scheme, and they were talking personnel, and they were talking groupings, and that is how he won his job. But before that, you could say maybe you should go hear what Nick Saban has to say about coaching, because after all, this guy has put 12 coordinators and 14 assistants into head coaching gigs in the last 15 years. 5 of those have been NFL head men. For perspective, Bob Stoops can claim 10 assistants who have earned head coaching gigs. Mike Leach, Chuck Long, Mark Mangino, Jay Norvell, Bo Pelini, Mike Stoops, Kevin Sumlin, Kevin Wilson, Lincoln Riley, and recently Josh Heupel. As soon as Cale Gundy decides he's tired of Oklahoma, I expect him to get one too. But Saban didn't build his staff from the ground up. He didn't raise those guys from pups. He goes to different coaches and coordinators that he can share something with, that he thinks he can learn something from. And the guy that came across his radar at UTSA was obviously Golding. But I found it kind of interesting that Golding got his start from a guy named Ron Roberts, who was head coach at Delta State and now is the defensive coordinator in the Sun Belt for University of Louisiana, ULL. But Ron Roberts has coached so many great defensive names to date that I'm starting to wonder why this guy isn't on somebody's staff somewhere in a Power 5 conference, because we're talking about a guy who helped groom not just Pete Golding, but LSU defensive coordinator Dave Aranda, Alabama secondary coach Carl Scott, Louisville defensive coordinator Brian Brown, and Kansas defensive coordinator DJ Elliott. At Delta State, those boys worked for next to nothing, and they had so many different hats. We're talking about guys that coached up the defense, broke down the film, put in the game plan in Excel, and were financial aid counselors all in a day's work. That is how you make a man that knows how to deal with people, who knows how to be personable, and knows exactly what his kids need to hear to do the job well. And I'm looking at Ron Roberts' resume, and I'm looking at the guys that he's put into outstanding positions. I got to see that this man is smiling. Because along with this is a guy that became famous in coaching circles. You know, Bruce Feldman has this great story on Pete Golding and gets into this in The Athletic. He became famous in coaching circles as a coach in an incubator, right? So you would have guys that coached on both sides of the ball, and Ron Roberts was not shy about putting them up on the whiteboard and saying, tell me what you see. So much so that he had a defensive line coach that he wanted to have draw up some offensive scheme and some offensive game plans, and my man drew all circles. And Ron Roberts had to say, hey, you know, with skill positions, we need to know who's eligible, so you need to use numbers or letters. Just little things to tweak and give you an opportunity to succeed. And I really enjoyed hearing those parts of Ron Roberts, because that's not a thing that many coaches, let alone managers, are comfortable doing. They're not going to give you opportunities to fail. They expect you to succeed. And in giving all these guys opportunities to try on different hats, to coach on both sides of the ball, and to have some say in what they do on both sides of the ball is how you make a coach. Because from year to year, you might coach running backs, you might coach linebackers. As a matter of fact, there's a guy on Oklahoma staff right now by the name of Roy Manning, who hadn't coached cornerbacks in some time, and everybody's asking, wow, can this dude actually coach in the secondary because we know him as an outside linebackers coach, inside linebackers coach? Yeah, he can. And he's coached running backs. And he coached DBs out at Michigan, where he played linebacker. Being a football coach means being able to coach every position and coach all the schemes. And in doing all of that, you get to develop your own philosophy, and that's one of the things that Pete Golding is become famous for here recently. I mean, not only did he put the shackles on Oklahoma's run game in the Sugar Bowl, but he's come up with this very cool pressure look where he can get pressure with 4 without sending 5 or 6 and run some sorts of zone that doesn't actually make you vulnerable. You don't have to send 5 or 6. You can send 4. And because over the course of the year, he made a point of blitzing from all 11 positions at one point or another, offensive coordinators have to think about it. Offensive coordinators have to be able to counter a safety blitz if that safety shows. Now, because he was not shy about moving his pieces around and giving different looks, making new things look old and old things look new, you're able to confuse the quarterback because that's what you're trying to do. And you saw a little bit of this in the Super Bowl where Bill Belichick essentially took Sean McVay out of Jared Goff's ear. Because right when they were supposed to stop talking with that 15 seconds left on the play clock, that is when Bill Belichick and Brian Flores, who is the new head man at Miami, would shift the Patriots' defense to give Jared Goff a different look and make Jared Goff make the adjustments at the line. And we saw that, at least in that game, he could not do it. So it's become interesting to me to see, how do you make a Pete Golding? How do you make a Brian Brown? How do you make the next great defensive coordinator? And what it comes down to is, are you willing to go to a place like Delta State in the Gulf South? Are you willing to go to a place like ULL, sleep on a couch, volunteer coach, try to get a job doing something, anything, coaching whatever you can get your hands on, so that you have an opportunity to try some stuff? So you have an opportunity to get on Ron Roberts' whiteboard, draw up some scheme, and see if this will work. And they were tinkering all the time. And I expect they'll do some tinkering at Alabama. But the thing about Alabama and Clemson and Georgia, and why I was saying earlier that perhaps you don't necessarily want to go to those clinics right away, is because you can run almost anything you want when you have the kind of athletes that Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson have on defense. But if you're really good at drawing up your scheme, you're going to be that much more difficult to stop. You're going to be that much more difficult to score on. And you heard in the Pete Golding sound that he focuses on outplaying the other defense, which means that if you gave up 600 yards passing in the Big 12, long as you didn't give up 601 or they gave up 601, you count that as a win. And I think that is a great way to approach defense in this day and age where we feel overrun by guys like Lincoln Riley, by guys like Sean McVay, by guys like even Cliff Kingsbury, who seem to be able to just pick these defenses apart. And now you got a guy like Pete Golding who's saying, nah, I know what I'm doing. And you got another guy like Dave Aranda who says, nah, I know what I'm doing. And now you got two guys at Georgia after losing Mel Tucker in Dan Lanning and Glenn Schumann who said, nah, I know what I'm doing, and I'm learning from Kirby Smart all the time. I think these are the things that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about offense and defense in college football. We need to continue to try to look at the guys who are doing it best at the lower divisions, because defensive scheme moves up, offensive scheme moves up. Things are late getting to college football and to the NFL. The things that they ran in the NFL last year, Oklahoma's been running since Lincoln Riley got here. The things that they're running at the Los Angeles Rams now are the things that they've been running at Alabama for some time. And you can look down into the lower ranks of football where you're not going to get a lot of eyes, you're not going to get a lot of film, and you're going to have guys that just aren't the kind of athletes that you're not going to have at the Division I level, so you're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to do what Sean Gleason did at Princeton, new guy at Oklahoma State. They ran so many motions and gave so many looks that they had those Ivy schools wondering which way the ball was going. And if you can do some hidden ball tricks on an offense, that's fine. But if you're a guy like Pete Golding, you're also going to try to tinker with the offense. You're going to show. You remember the amoeba defense that Rex Ryan used to run, where it seemed like all 11 guys were capable of rushing at any time. They were all standing up. They were all moving around. Problem is, if you try to do that kind of thing at a place like Oklahoma, you got to be willing to give up a few big scores, or you got to recruit better athletes. When we come back, I'm going to talk some NBA. I'm going to talk some MVP. I know that Anthony Davis is ruining the NBA for a lot of you, but I think there's reason to be excited about this All-Star game tonight and about the rest of the season going forward. This is Fight Me with RJ Young on KYAL, the sports animal. Fight Me.
It shows the talent that we have within the league. It shows still progression within the league. I'm very proud of how what both guys have done because they're making their mark for the league, and I think it really helps the growth of the league, which is harder from a player standpoint. 6 championships by all means.
Take one more.
That was His Airness Michael Jordan responding to a question about what he thought of what Russell Westbrook and James Harden have done respectively. Russell Westbrook, 11 straight triple-doubles, first of his kind, first of his name. James Harden with more 30-point games than there are days of the month, and yet we're still having this conversation about who the NBA MVP is because, quite honestly, it's going to be fierce. There is no getting around that. But we got to mention some guys that just aren't going to make it into the final tally, like Nikola Jokic. That guy is the best big man not named Anthony Davis. He's taken the Denver Nuggets from a fighter for a 7th seed to a disruptor in the West. He has assisted on 38% of his teammates' buckets, which is obscene for a center. That is a guy that is absolutely dropping dimes. And as much as y'all hate it, Kevin Durant is averaging 27 points, 7 boards, 6 assists a game on a Warriors team that seems locked up for another title. And he carried that team when Steph was hurt. But the guy, ain't even the best at his position. That's Paul George, and we'll get into that in a little bit. You can talk about Kawhi Leonard, Toronto Raptors, who are filthy because he's filthy. He's averaging 27 a game, which is a career high. He seems very, very happy to be in Toronto, which might be a ringing indictment of San Antonio. And he's shooting 49% from the field, 36% from beyond the arc, and 86% from the line. Problem is, Toronto is 13-3 when Leonard doesn't play, which is kind of like a Kyrie situation at the Boston Celtics, where you kind of like, what are you doing if you don't need Kyrie to win, or Kyrie to win, or Kawhi to win, right? K's, man. Now, I can include Russ as an honorable mention here, but I can't in all good conscience give an MVP vote to a guy that had 44, 14, and 11 against the Pelicans in a loss when you didn't even play the half against Anthony Davis. I can't do it, but I can totally see Russ has been awesome for Oklahoma City without Roberson or Sophilosha like defender. And with the 11 consecutive triple-doubles speaks for itself. It's just nasty. But the 3 guys that we really need to pay attention to here, first one is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis is the best player on the best team, which is usually who the MVP goes to. His squad is 43-14 at the All-Star break with the league's best defense. He's on pace to be the first player to average 27, 12, and 6 since Oscar Robertson did it 57 years ago. Good grief. I mean, we're talking about the love child of young Shaq and Miami-era LeBron. He's that kind of dude. And if he starts to knock down these threes at a stupid rate, we're going to rewrite the record book again because we're talking about a guy that has more than 75 blocks and 75 steals. The only other guy in the NBA doing that is Andre Drummond. Shout out to him. But he ain't been doing what James Harden is doing. Now, I understand you're not into James Harden as an MVP, but here's the thing, man. He's having a year, too. As much as y'all hate it, he's averaging the 8th highest points per game of anybody in history. And the most since MJ. That's ridiculous. The man had a 50-point triple-double in December. Matter of fact, since December 13th, he's averaged 41.5 points, 7.6 boards, and 7.4 assists. And that step back is the filthiest thing on earth. It's lethal. Lest we all forget, again, more 30-point games consecutively than there are days of the month. Problem is, so ball dominant that when the Rockets aren't making threes, it looks like Harden is just having a Westbrook-like 3 for 21 night. Again, Russ is a force of nature. He's a constant battering ram and an offensive force, but so is James Harden. When you know that that guy is just going to get to the line, the defense as a psyche just goes through the floor. It's like, look, I'm doing everything I know how to do. How do I end up fouling this man, get him to the free throw line? Hey, he's taking advantage of the rules, right? But Paul George is having the statistically best season of his life. He is the best player for the Oklahoma City Thunder with a teammate who's averaging 22, 11, and 11. Think about that. And he's not even the emotional center of this team. As a matter of fact, you could say that he's the KD of this Thunder squad. It's just that Russ happens to like Paul George in a way that he doesn't like Kevin Durant, or didn't seem to like Kevin Durant. I mean, 29, 8, and 4 this season. It's 29 points, 8 boards, 4 assists for a small forward that is in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. I know there's some folks that hate the term two-way player in basketball because you play offense and defense. This ain't football, but he's a two-way player. And he's shooting better than 40% from three with nearly 10 attempts a game. So he's not taking a small amount of three-pointers, and he's just dropping the hammer on people. Problem is, he's the best player on maybe the 6th best team in the league. And having Russ on your squad does not help you win the MVP. However, you have to say to this point, the MVP of this league ain't any of these guys. It's Adam Silver. It's the commissioner. We're talking about the NBA. The NBA is fun. Anthony Davis trade talks dominated Super Bowl week. Adam Silver's opening a league in Africa. He is trying to make basketball the global game that soccer is to many. He's also the most likable commissioner in sports today, which is not an easy thing to do. How many folks like Roger Goodell? The owners, so 32 people on earth. How many people know who the commissioner of baseball is? Baseball people. I know it's Rob Manfred. But if you're talking about what they've been able to do for their sports, if you're talking about how much players and coaches enjoy this man, you have to be talking about the lawyer who went to Duke. One of the cool dudes on the planet who can go through these NBA drafts and dap it up with the best of them. That man's dap game is superior, especially when he doesn't get to rehearse any of this stuff. Like if they go in for the hug, he goes in for the hug. If they go in for the fist pound, he goes in for the fist pound. I'll bet he could keep up with the kid and play. I'll bet he could DJ Jazzy Jeffett and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air all at the same time. I think he got it like that. But that's kind of the point of this weekend, this All-Star weekend where, man, we saw Hamidou Diallo stick his chicken wing in the bucket and then show the S on his chest, which is ridiculous. We saw Trae Young nearly win the skills competition, but what I love most about the skills competition is that Trae Young refused to lose to Luka. He said, nah. I know y'all comparing me to this cat for the rest of my life. I am not about to drop the skills challenge to Luka Doncic. But you also got to see Luka. They had him mic'd up, and it was one of the best things about the weekend. He was running up and down the court talking about, look at me, I'm De'Aaron Fox. He's having such a good time. And then the three-point contest, man, who is Joe Harris? Like, tell the truth, shame the devil, Corey. Did you know who Joe Harris was?
Nah, only because I play 2K. That's the only reason I knew him. That's the only reason.
Bro, I need to get back on my 2K. I stay on that Destiny. I stay with the Titan throwing these hammers. But Joe Harris, I had to look it up. Dude plays for the Nets. Dude is Mr. Washington basketball. Dude played at UVA. But I'm like, who is Joe Harris? I thought Steph was going to win this thing. And that's kind of the cool part about the All-Star Weekend is that now folks know Joe Harris's name. Folks that don't live in the Oklahoma City area or in Oklahoma now know Hamidou Diallo's name. And the way that this has been able to unfold, this is the most fun all-star weekend in sports. It's the most fun all-star game in sports. We watch it. We enjoy it. We like that the players get up for it. We enjoy the East versus West competitions when they were. Now, we got this added drama of captains picking like we at the Y and then trading players. Like, you could trade no players at the Y. Be like, you can't trade me. Well, I'm not a commodity. I'm not a future on the stock market. Nah, you stuck with me, and you know I'm just going to be up here jacking. I'm 5'5". I'm not, I'm up here taking 33-footers, and I'm saying, hey, what you want me to do? You want me to go in there with them trees? I share a birthday with Hamidou Diallo. You know what I don't share with that man? His vertical. Man. Look, I appreciate that he just kind of went for the win with his last 2 dunks. But come on, dog. Like, first, you jumping over Shaq, and you didn't need any leverage, and you stuck your chicken wing in the bucket, and then you like, yo, Quavo, can you stand right here right quick? And then you go jump over Quavo like it's nothing. And what I hate about this is that you got Dwayne Wade, Quavo, you got Shaq just dapping it up after these dudes jumped over their heads. Man, if you need me in the back of the head, we'd be fighting. We would be so rough. But look, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more college football. We're going to talk about what Lincoln Riley needs to see in his quarterbacks, which I found interesting. But as we get out of here, I want to direct you to AmericanPutterCompany.com and the website. They put up some new stuff, some great head covers, free shipping. You need a divot tool? Go check it out. You need a custom putter? Go check it out. Use the promo code RJYoung at checkout. American Putter Company, presenting sponsor of this show, and they hate Texas. Tells you where their allegiance lie. This is Fight Me with RJ Young. We'll be right back. Fight Me.
What is the it you look for in a high school quarterback? What is, because everybody thinks, well, he's big and he's got a big arm. Is there an it you look for?
Yeah, the big arm doesn't matter a whole lot. I mean, that doesn't come into play a ton. I mean, physically, what we look for, the number one thing we look for is, are they accurate? They've got to be accurate, and they've got to be a good enough athlete. They're not always going to be Kyler Murray's. There's only one of those out there, but they've got to be good enough athletically. The biggest thing we look for, though, was a guy winner. I mean, and at the end of the day, if you're a good enough high school player, then your team, as a quarterback, your team's going to win. And you may not win the state championship. You may not have all the other best players on your team, but you're going to win. And that's one thing Baker and Kyler both had in common. Is all they've ever done is win. And you can, and that's, I think, a trait that becomes expected. And I think you can just tell so much out of a guy that gets the most out of his teammates and finds a way to win and finds a way to play his best in big moments. And so we really try to evaluate those things hard and get to know the kids. And, luckily we had 2 guys like that came in and have done well. But that's kind of set the stage here for more great ones here in the future.
Does that ever sound like a quarterback from West Texas? I don't care about your arm. I don't care about your legs. I don't care about your measurables. I care about, can you win football games? I mean, took me back to Friday Night Lights when Mike Winchell talked about 2-1 Razor, 60 Cheetah. Just calling it on the fly saying we're going to try to go win this football game right quick. But Lincoln Riley walks it like he talks it. I mean, he goes out here. Look, I'm telling you, there was a quarterback coming out of Fort Scott Community College, washed out of Boston College because he's backing up a middling quarterback by the name of Matt Ryan. Maybe y'all know him or not. I don't know. At Fort Scott, this quarterback led his squad to its first conference title since 1974, a junior college national title game, and an 11-1 season. His name's Dominique Davis. He ended up the starter at East Carolina in 2010, played for Lincoln Riley. In his first start for the East Carolina Pirates, my man's went 27 of 46 for 383 with 5 TDs. He was a winner before he got to Lincoln Riley, and Lincoln Riley said, let's go win some football games. There's another quarterback, one of the 2-star recruits, shout out to Corey in the booth, out of Bel Air, Texas. Ain't nobody signed him, signing day. But there was a ball coach that knew something from football. And his name's Dana Holgerson. Saw this quarterback, called up his buddy, Ruff McNeil, who is the new head coach at East Carolina. Ruff McNeil, he's a defensive guy. He says to his young offensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley, would you take a look at this 2-star quarterback in his tape? Well, it turns out Lincoln Riley offered the guy just to get him on a visit. He liked him so much. His name's Shane Carden. He ended up passing for 8,700 plus yards at ECU. Now, most folks know Lincoln Riley as the guy who won Heisman trophies with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Maybe a Heisman means something where you're from, I don't know. But folks who aren't sold on Jalen Hurts need to see the number one criteria Lincoln Riley put for being his quarterback. It's winning. Jalen Hurts went 26-2 as a starter in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I don't know if Alabama football means anything to you where you're from. You know who else knows how to win? A redshirt freshman quarterback at Oklahoma by the name of Tanner Mordecai. He put his team on his back as a senior, passed for 4,300 plus yards, rushed for 1,100 plus yards, en route to 15 straight wins and a state championship game appearance. For his efforts, he was named the 6A Offensive Player of the Year in the state of Texas. Texas high school football staying lit, man. You know who else knows how to win? It's the Elite 11 MVP. Only 5-star quarterback in the 2019 class. But check this out. I watched this kid by the name of Spencer Rattler bring his opening final 7-on-7 squad back from the dead. It was named Team Overdrive, but the nickname down there in Frisco at the Star was Team OU because it was not just Spencer. It was also Spencer Rattler along with R.J. Henderson, who was committed at the time, Theo Weiss, who signed, Jace McClellan, who is the leader of this 2020 class, 5-star running back, and Trajan Bridges, 5-star wide receiver, who's also signed with Oklahoma. And the thing that I found interesting was when I talked to the receivers on that squad, and they took their L's, and they had to come back. They couldn't lose again in this double elimination tournament. They said, Spencer said, it's on me. I got it. We'll come back from it. And he took it really hard. But the wide receiver said, we ain't worried. I said, why weren't y'all worried? Theo and Trajan Bridges told me because we know who we are and we know who our quarterback is. And when you're talking about 5-star wide receivers, you're talking about guys that are feeling themselves more often than not. Okay? That's why they play the position. It's a diva position, and we all understand that and respect it. But Spencer Rattler commanded that team. These boys genuflected to their quarterback. And that is the guy who is coming in June to join this Sooner squad that is going to be led by the leader that is Jalen Hurts. If you didn't see my man squat nearly 600 pounds in February as a quarterback, you need to go watch it. Now, I understand there's folks out there that's like, yo, man, squatting doesn't make you win football games. All right, well, sure doesn't hurt you none neither. And if I got a quarterback who could squat 600 pounds, you know who doesn't get the slack in the weight room? Nobody. Nobody gets the slack in the weight room when the quarterback is squatting 600, when he's benching close to 3 bills, when he's cleaning over 300, when he is just a man amongst them. And as a grad transfer, he is.
Bro,
it's
you
his
shouldn't
job.
be squatting that until like the end of March, maybe April. You build up to 600. It's mid-February.
I think they was maxing out, though. That's what it looked like because they was crowded around like they was maxing out. So, like, if they still ain't maxed out, what's he going to hit now? Because it's 585 on the board. It's 585 on the board. Look. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to blow my own horn because, as Jimmy Breslin said, if you don't toot your own horn, there is no music. I won a national championship, power sports. My weight class, 165, bench, deadlift, and curl. I know from pulling. I know from pushing. I know from curling. I know from squatting. And what I'm telling you is, there is nothing like putting 500 pounds on your back. Now, it's a number. But there's something about putting that on your back, putting that on your vertebrae, and having that push you into the ground, and having a strength coach that says, get in the hole, that is going to mess with your nerves. You were prepared for this, but hey, it's still 500 pounds on your back. Now, perspective is Jalen Hurts has been doing this since he was a sophomore in high school. I think if his dad was not the head coach down at Channelview, he probably wouldn't have lasted as a quarterback because he just looks like a running back. He looks like a linebacker. And he's going to have to continue to deal with that. But it gets back to that winning thing, right? Because one of the reasons I got to believe that he was interested in coming to Oklahoma is to be coached by Lincoln Riley. And in being coached by Lincoln Riley, you're going to become a better quarterback. And if he can turn Jalen Hurts into a Heisman finalist, what is it that Lincoln Riley can't do? Because it's not as if Jalen Hurts is an outstanding passer. He's a good passer. He's a better passer, as folks like to say, than he gets credit for, which is another way of saying that he's a butcher and not a surgeon. A butcher can slice the meat. You can expect him to beat up some dead things. A surgeon is the guy that you trust to go in there on your brain and not mess anything up. You had surgeons in Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. What if Lincoln Riley can make Jalen Hurts into a surgeon? Corey, what would you do if you thought that Jalen Hurts could pass for 70% on the season?
He'd be playing. I'd be throwing that rock.
Right. Now, throw into that, he is a power quarterback runner, and you got a bevy of running backs that you like and you trust. Now, what's your scheme?
A balanced attack.
Right. Which is exactly what Oklahoma's been doing. So Lincoln Riley went all Machiavellian on us and said, hey, Austin Kendall, I know that I went into your living room and I said you're going to be my cornerback and you've been here for 3 years and you grad transfer and whatnot, but I got an opportunity to go get this dude and continue to be balanced, to run the ball like I want to run the ball. And you know what? To look a lot like Oklahoma's 2015 offense in the way that they did things. And you got to believe that if Alex Grinch can get something going at all with this defense, you're talking about a third straight appearance into the college football playoff. And is that not what we're playing for? Is that not why we play college football? To win championships? Corey, do you want to win a championship?
Every time. Every single year.
Right. And that's why you come to Oklahoma. Matter of fact, it goes back to that Adrian Peterson pitch that Cale Gundy gave. Look, we know you're the best at what you do, but we're the best at what we do. So do you want to be with us winning championships or you want to watch us do it? And that was given to Jalen. And you see, that's the thing, though. Jalen Hurts got a national championship. I think he wants more. And I don't mean another national championship. I think he wants to be the guy who does what nobody else has been able to do, which is beat a Nick Saban Alabama coach team for a title at Oklahoma. We can talk about the 2014 Sugar Bowl all we want. Lord knows I like bringing it up. Sugar Bowl, Trevor Knight for the win. But that wasn't for no title. And it's been 19 years since Oklahoma won a national championship. So for folks that ain't into the idea of Jalen Hurts, I need you to look at Lincoln Riley's number one criteria. And I need you to look at his past two quarterbacks, and you'll see what is possible. Before we get out of here, I want to thank sponsors of Fight Me with RJ Young, presenting sponsor American Putter Company. Love y'all. Want to thank Trey's Tulsa, my man's Travis, Steve Bulliter, McGraw Realtors, and the fanstop.com OU t-shirt of the month club is real cool. I get my shipment every month. They give you 10% off for a year if you use my name at checkout, which means you basically get a free shirt. You should do those things. When you go to Trey's, tell them RJ sent you. When you talk to my man Steve, tell him to keep sending me houses because that's what we're doing. We out here trying to find a house. It's hard. I'm learning all about that. It's hard. And when you're talking about putting, yo, we should all be better putters. There is no excuse for not being able to putt. It's like shooting. It's free. You go to a putting green. You drop some balls. You get better. And why not do it with your very own custom putter? I'm getting my custom putter. It's got Molin Lobby on it. It's got Spartans on it. It's got all of my favorites. It's got my tattoos on it. It's my sword. My putter's my sword. And if you would like to be a sponsor of Fight Me, call 918-248-0097. That's 918-248-0097. My assistant talk with you. I want to thank Corey being in the booth, man. Have fun today. You have fun today?
Always, brother.
That's what's
always.
Up. That's what's up. That's going to do it for us on this episode, this show, this edition of Fight Me with RJ Young. We'll see you next week at 10 a.m. I'm going to take you to church. Deuces.